Number 5. Milk Outside of a Bag of Milk. Outside of a Bag of Milk. Released in 2021. That's a short psychological horror game, visual novel to be more precise, developed by Nikita. It's a sequel to Milk Inside of a Bag of Milk Inside of a Bag of Milk, which was released in 2020. Unlike most horror games, the series does not focus on monsters, survival, or traditional horror gameplay. Instead, the game focuses on the mind of its main character. The story follows an unnamed girl dealing with her own thoughts, emotions, and perception of reality. The player experiences everyday situation through her perspective, but the way the game presents these moments makes normal events feel unsettling. The game uses unusual visuals, distorted conversations, and surreal scenes to create an unforgettable atmosphere. A simple task such as buying a milk becomes a much deeper experience because the player is seeing the world through a character who struggles with her own thoughts. The horror comes from uncertainty, and the player is constantly questioning what's happening and what might only exist in the character's head. The game is very short, usually taking around half an hour to complete, but uses their limited runtime to focus on atmosphere and storytelling. It's less about being scared by something chasing you and more about exploring uncomfortable psychological themes. So, for players who enjoy strange and experimental horror games, it's one of the most unique indie horror experiences. Number 4. Voices of the Void. It's an indie horror game created by Eric Otag. The game puts players in the role of a scientist working alone at a remote research facility. The main objective is analyzing signals coming deep from space. At first, the game feels more like a quiet exploration and management experience, getting the players to spend time collecting signals, repairing equipment, maintaining the base, and exploring the surrounding areas. However, this isolation slowly becomes the main source of horror. The player is completely alone, far away from civilization, with only the research station and the strange signals being discovered. As the game continues, unusual events begin happening around the facility, making the fear come from not knowing what's happening, such as the player hearing strange sounds, discovering mysterious signals, and making the player second guess themselves with all the strange anomalies happening around them. Like many other horror games, Voices of the Void does not rely on constant enemies or jump scares. Instead, it builds tension through atmosphere and uncertainty. The idea behind the game is based around one of the oldest science fiction fears: what happens when humanity discovers something beyond its understanding. The game uses mystery of space as a source of horror, making the unknown the threat in the game. Number 3. No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. Released in 2020, it's a horror game developed by Marivo Collective. The game takes place around the lighthouse station, putting the players in the role of a lighthouse keeper on a remote island. The job is simple: keep the lighthouse operating, maintain the lights, survive alone. However, the isolation of the island quickly becomes unsettling as the players spend most of the time alone with no one around them to help, which creates a unique and unsettling atmosphere, and the lighthouse, which should represent safety, slowly becomes something uncomfortable. The game uses low poly visual style inspired by old games. The style really helps create the feeling that something is wrong, helping to add to its unusual atmosphere and the horror of the game. Instead of focusing on realistic graphics, the game relies on atmosphere, sound design, and environment storytelling. As the player continues their duties, strange events happen around the island and making the player question what is real and what is not. Small changes in the environment, strange sounds, and unexplained events takes place around the island, which creates a very disturbing vibe. No One Lives Under the Lighthouse is a good example how horror can come from simple ideas, such as a lonely place, a simple job, and a feeling that something is not right. Number 2. Chasing Static. Released in 2021, it's a psychological horror game developed by Headway Games. The story follows Chris, a man who discovers strange events connected to an abandoned cafe in rural Wales. After encountering something unusual, Chris begins investigating the mystery surrounding the area. The game takes inspiration from old horror titles, especially games from the late 90s and early 2000s. Instead of focusing on combat, Chasing Static is built around exploration and investigation. One of the main gameplay mechanics is a device called the spectral analysis device. This device allows the player to discover unusual signals, uncover hidden information. The player is not fighting enemies, but searching for answers. A major part of the experience is the sound design. Static noises, strange recording, and unexplained signals creates most of the tension, with the setting also helping, as the game takes place in an isolated area, rural location filled with abandoned buildings and empty roads. This creates a feeling of loneliness throughout the experience, chasing static focuses on mystery and atmosphere rather than traditional horror mechanics. The fear comes from slowly discovering something happening, even if something is not explained. Number 1. The Moon Sliver, released in 2014, as the least unknown game on this list and also the oldest one. It's a short horror indie game developed by David Selesky, the creator behind games like Dusk. Unlike many horror games that focus on enemies or constant danger, the Moon Sliver is built around atmosphere, exploration, and mystery. The game begins with the player waking up in a strange, isolated environment with very little explanation. There's no clear instructions, no major cutscenes, no characters explaining what is happening. Instead, the player has to explore the world and piece together information through the environments. The game focuses heavy on loneliness. The locations feel abandoned, and the lack of answers makes the whole experience feel unsettling. A major part of the horror comes from the uncertainty. You're constantly trying to understand where you are and what happened before you arrived, and what the strange things around you mean. The Moon Sliver uses a simple visual style, but that actually helps it create its atmosphere. The limited graphics makes the world feel like a forgotten memory, while the sound design adds to that feeling that something is wrong. The game does not rely on traditional horror elements like combat enemies or jump scares. Instead, it creates fear through the exploration and the unknown. A lot of indie horror games try to scare the players with sudden moments, but the Moon Sliver focuses more on leaving the player with questions. It's a short experience, usually taking less than an hour to complete, but it creates a strong feeling of mystery that stays with the player. The Moon Sliver is a good example of how small indie horror games can create experiences through mood, isolation, and imagination rather than relying on realistic graphics or complicated mechanics. Thank you for watching this video, leaving a like, comment, and subscribing with me more. I'll see you guys next time with another video.